Ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you can hear me. I'm just quickly going to log on to the stream and see if everything's okay. It's 8 o'clock exactly, and I'm pretty sure that qualifying for the Season 8 finale is just about to get underway. I'm pretty excited for this. At least I've been told that it is going to be a crazy 1v1 showdown. It's going to go right to the wire on the final round of Season 8, so... I'll do the formal intro and we can get to spectating these drivers who are apparently already out on the track. I apologise, you might hear some background noise. I'm going to shut my door. And I was just able to hear myself then. That's not good. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall get the stream running. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, in fact, we'll do a really sick camera. And we'll go up to Iggy, already on pole. And here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Aero League Racing. I'm your host, NLR Sick Boy, and you're probably thinking, who is that behind the mic? That's not who I'm used to hearing commentate Tier 1. Well, the usual commentator, whoever that may be. Unfortunately, I haven't done my homework for this commentary today, ladies and gentlemen. Well, he's unfortunately absent. So I've come in. Normally, I'm at university. I used to race in Aero League Racing a couple seasons ago. Me, Iggy and BR4 battling for the Season 4 championship or something, I'm not too sure, but I've got my fair share of experience with Aero League Racing. I've got a lot of experience with Gran Turismo 7, so don't you worry. I'm hoping that I can give you guys an excellent commentary, as you probably expect. Even so, we're just about 1 minute 30, in fact, sorry, we're just about 7 or 8, maybe 9 minutes into qualifying right now. And if you haven't already heard, which you probably already know, it's the final round of the championship, Season 8, around Dragon Trail Seaside. One of, well, everyone's, I guess, favourite tracks in the game. I was about to say one of my favourite tracks in the game, but I think everybody likes Dragon Trail Seaside. It's pretty much raced in every Gran Turismo series I've ever been a part of. It's an extremely popular track, and it's popular for a reason. It's just an incredible track, of course. You can't forget, the Chicane of Death is why a lot of people like it so much. Regardless, we're not here for just, you know, any old battle between any old driver. We're here because it's the final round of the season, and I've heard that the championship is going right down to the wire as I pull the standings up on my phone. Here we are. It is going to be a 1v1 battle for the Season 8 championship between the mighty Iggy and BX Royal. Of course, Iggy at the moment is just in the lead by 34 points, which, to be fair, is quite a substantial margin, as he is a little bit squirrely there through the Chicane of Death. We're obviously riding on board with Iggy right now. Of course, BX Royal, I apologise, has actually got the fastest lap enough for provisional pole so far, but he's had a massive incident through the Chicane of Death, and he actually reset into the pits. Not too sure if that's allowed. It probably is, because I'm sure a driver who's battling for the championship would know the rules of the series he's racing in. And as I talk about Iggy being on the front row of the grid, Lars T comes out of nowhere with a pretty decent 137.5, landing him on the front row of the grid next to BX Royal. Iggy now all the way down into P3. But as the championship stands, it has been a tight battle between Iggy and BX Royal. Of course, Royal took the championship lead after the first race, but then was absent for the second race and has been popping pretty consistent podiums ever since. I think he actually missed one podium, which was the feature race of round 3. Apart from that, he's either been winning or been on the podium every race since, but there's no stopping Iggy. He's actually won the last 5 races in a row, of course counting sprint and feature races. And of course took both victories last week in Deep Forest Raceway. So yeah, the momentum's definitely firmly in Iggy's hands, but it's going to be difficult to decide, or to predict, sorry, who this championship trophy is going to be going to. But it may look a bit grim right now for the mighty Iggy all the way down in P7, because out of nowhere, Kepler GT and Howlin' Jimmy J, a driver who unfortunately I've never commentated for. I remember Kepler in season 7 or season 6 was one of the newer drivers for Tier 1 at least. And he was just tearing up the track. It was a battle between Kep, Iggy, and as I talk about Kep's provisional pole position, Iggy comes out of nowhere and beats his time by pretty much an entire second. He's now on provisional pole by almost 6/10. An absolutely incredible lap there by Iggy, and unfortunately, I do apologise for not being on board for it. But instead, I'm kind of interested in looking at this midfield battle. I mean, look at this. Right now, I just apologise. Rayo Chan in the... is that the Genesis X? Which is a car you rarely see in Gran Turismo 7 League Racing. Coming out here with a 137.38. And once again, getting the front row of the grid. Man, that P2 spot is changing hands very often. I was just about to make a comment at how close this midfield is. Look at this, only a couple hundredths of a second between P7. And look at that, I was about to say Howlin' Jimmy in P3, but no, Rayo Chan in P2 has only beaten Howlin' Jimmy by 6 milliseconds. Right, I think it's time to get back on board once again with mighty Iggy, as we receive a message from, I would imagine, RDO perhaps, or at least it's the admin of the YouTube channel, talking about how Iggy was predicting that he was going to be struggling on the final round of the championship around Dragon Trail Seaside. I apologise, Dragon Trail Seaside. I'm just going to call it Seaside from now on. But look, out of nowhere, he's ended up popping the provisional pole by half a second. As I say that, BX Royal is really giving Iggy a hard time here on the final round of the championship. He ends up popping pole himself by 1.5 tenths of a second. Now, unfortunately, I'm not too sure what time qualifying started and what time it's going to end, but we're about 14.5 minutes into the qualifying session right now. If I remember, it was a 15 or perhaps an 18-minute quali. Okay, I've been very busy recently and I haven't raced in ALR for a long time, so I've forgotten all of the details like that. But I just see BX Royal on the front row of the grid, and I know that this is going to be an insane battle between Iggy and Royal. Now, just quickly making a comment about the two cars that these drivers are using. Okay, so BX Royal is in the new Nissan Nismo, the 2019 model, I believe, that they added into the game. Well, it was about 6 months ago now. I believe it was around Christmas time, but still interesting to see a driver use the Nismo, because I've never actually seen a league race with this car be used. I haven't commentated for a long time. Of course, though, mighty Iggy using one of my favourite cars in Group 3, actually, the 4GT race car, as it's called in the game. It's just the new version of the 4GT. I don't even know what I'm talking about. All I know is that I have done testing once again on every single... Whoa, as Howlin' Jimmy J loses it. Well, he did lose it at least. We did catch that on the stream. Loses it through the chicane of death. What I was going to say is I've once again tested the stats of every single car in Group 3. At least that was like last week before this final minute physics update that happened only a couple minutes ago. And the 4GT race car is one of the fastest cars, top speed-wise, in the game. It's only beaten by the old spec 4GT and the Ford Mustang as well, which I would imagine is banned this season, considering it is by far one of the strongest cars in Group 3. Not a single driver is using it, alongside the Jag F-Type, my favourite car in Group 3. Of course, nobody's using that, so I imagine a couple of drivers probably stole the Constructors' Championship victory in the Ford Mustang last season, and it's been banned in Tier 1 this season. Anyway, look at all of those cars stopping. I'm for sure that signifies only one thing, and that is qualifying is over, ladies and gentlemen. We've hit the 16-minute mark, and the only driver that's still on a flyer is actually BX Royal, even though he's already got provisional pole. Just going up the grid right now, it seems like, well, of course, pretty much everybody has decided to qualify in racing softs, and I'm pretty sure that there aren't any rules about, you know, being able to start on a different tyre compound for the sprint. So everyone's going for the softs for the sprint, which I would imagine is going to be about 12 or 13 laps. And that's very interesting, because back in the day, Season 6, not many people went for the softs. It was almost a guarantee that you would have had to have pit, as BX Royal loses it on the curb around the penultimate corner. I mean, look guys, let's call it the final corner of Dragon Trail Seaside. And, of course, he's already got pole position, a 136.755, which is an incredible lap time. As I imagine RDO reminds me that the M6, the Mustang and the Jag are all banned. Yes, I would imagine so. They're incredibly strong cars. I mean, I can't vouch for the M6, I have to admit, but I've done the testing and the Jag is overpowered, and so is the Ford Mustang. I'm not surprised that they're banned. I must admit, we are seeing a pretty good mix of cars though. Quite a few GTRs, a Genesis, which is very surprising. A couple Chevrolets, a lot of choosing the Porsche 911, although this is a controversial opinion. I have no idea why it's so popular in daily races. But who cares, because BX Royal in the Nissan GTR 35 is of course on position, and Mighty Iggy's right alongside him. I'm not actually going to do the cinematic shot, I'm actually going to be on board with CMP23 in 3, because I want to see who gets the better start off the line as we start the sprint race of round 8, and it's an awful start for Mighty Iggy. He's bogged down like crazy. BX Royal maintains the lead. Mighty Iggy drops down into P3, and in fact he's lost another 2 positions to Kepler and Rayo Chan into turn 1. We have BX Royal leading, and Iggy's trying to go for a move around the outside of Rayo Chan, and he gets hit from behind. Kepler spun around. Kepler hit into the back of Iggy, and he's dropped down to P7. All of the Aston Martins have overtaken him, and a couple Porsches as well. He's all the way down into P11 now, as BX Royal is still in the lead by quite a healthy margin. Right behind him is CM23 in the GTR, and Rayo Chan in the Genesis behind, BR4 in the Supra, Elite Spectre and Tape in the AMR, and we've got the 2 Porsches of Mouchelot and Lars, RDO in the Merc, behind him Simon K. We've got a bit of a Noah's Ark layout here with the constructors, as Mouchelot takes a lot of curb through the end of the S's, heading downhill into the ultra tight turn before the chicane of death. Nope is actually going to be going for a move, apart from Iggy himself, of course, battling for this world title, which is going right down to the final race. Of course, it's him versus BX Royal, who's leading by quite a bit when compared to Iggy, who's gone side by side with Simon K through the chicane of death, and he has to concede the position. That was an incredibly ballsy move by Iggy, who's fighting for the championship, but I guess he doesn't want BX Royal to be running off with the victory, which is kind of what he's doing right now. Elite Spectre gets a pretty good exit. I was about to say that Typos was about to make a move on his teammate there, but unfortunately not. But we see BX Royal almost a second and a half now leading the pack, and all the way down in P10 is the Mighty Iggy. Now unfortunately there's no such thing as a instant replay until I start getting, you know, the Twitch stream out, but I can at least describe what happened at the start of the race. I think Iggy got bogged down, he got a bad start, and I'm not going to lie, I think it was actually, where is he? Aero GT. For some reason he's in 13. It looked like he actually broke ultra late into turn 2, that really tight turn 2-3 up chicane. It looked like he kind of took Mighty Iggy out a bit. He spun around himself, of course. That's what happened to Kep. He spun around on lap 1 after hitting into, I think, hitting into Iggy. Talking about Iggy, he's almost lost his position to Simonke there, but oh, he's in P10 now, and he's actually split the two AMGs, sorry, as he heads down into that downhill tight right-hander. Simonke, interestingly, who's right on the back bumper of Mighty Iggy, he decides not to go for a move into that really tight turn, that really tight right-hander. Now into the chicane of death, and looking up the grid, it seems like it's pretty clean and square for everybody, all the way up to P1. In fact, we've got a side-by-side battle happening between CMP and Ryo-chan for P2, heading into the final turn. CMP goes late, and on the inside of the corner, Ryo-chan goes deep, swoops round, goes for the switchback. The two drivers are now side-by-side, heading down into turn 1. Ryo-chan's got a little bit more speed than CMP. That could be the excellent top speed of the Genesis X, though, to be fair. CMP now in P3. He's down on the inside of Ryo-chan, and he concedes the position. Ryo-chan gets the wider line into the turn 2-3 chicane, and he's now firmly in P2. That also means that BX Royal is almost 4 seconds ahead now in the lead of the race, and it seems like it's all gone wrong for Iggy. He's down in P9, and there's a substantial gap between him and a bit of a DRS train forming with the Porsches. P8, 7 and Mouchalot, of course, in P6. Elite Spectre as well, forming a bit of a DRS train, and Iggy's right at the back of it, and that is not what he wants to see. Look, BX Royal almost 4 seconds in the lead of the race now, as BR4 probably has the best chance of overtaking a driver on the entire grid right now. He's right on the back of CMP into that tight right-hander, and this is turning into a bit of a three-way battle for P2. BR4 right on the back of CMP through the chicane of death. Not a lot of drama happening up and down the grid right now, and he gets a pretty good slipstream through the chicane of death, but he has to brake a little bit, meaning he loses quite a lot of speed. Oh dear, ladies and gentlemen, I was just on board there with Mighty Iggy, and I was speechless as I saw him only about half a tenth behind Lars T in the Porsche through the chicane of death. Unfortunately, Iggy didn't risk anything. Well, fortunately for Iggy, he didn't risk anything. I say unfortunately, it would have been good to get a bit of drama on the board, as the two Dutchmen, Lars and Elite Spectre, swap positions through the final turn. Elite Spectre in the AMR now in P6. AMR's got a surprising amount of top speed when compared to the Porsche 911, but let's see if Lars is able to make a move, and brakes extremely early. Sorry, Elite Spectre brakes extremely early in the AMR into turn 2, and it's meant that Lars gets the lead of the pack, well, lead of the train, sorry, and he's now in P7. I don't know what's going on here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm stumbling all over my words. Lars T is now in P6. He is once again in the lead. Both drivers have swapped positions quite a bit, but another driver swap is that the Mighty Iggy is now in P7 behind Lars. So the battle between Elite Spectre and Lars there, that lasted pretty much the whole of Sector 1, has allowed Iggy to get right on the back of Lars, and now Iggy's going to show off the incredible acceleration and top speed and straight line speed of the 4GT race car into that really tight right-hander. Lars and Iggy are side by side. Iggy brakes early, Lars brakes late on the inside. Iggy goes for the switchback, and he's able to pull it off. He's now in P6 and firmly in the lead ahead of Lars T through the chicane of death. Lars T actually quite squirrely through the chicane of death. I think I'm lagging a little bit there, ladies and gentlemen, because for a moment I thought Lars was about to die through the chicane of death, as Lars T is now on the inside of Mighty Iggy. Both drivers are side by side heading into the final turn. Lars goes deep and goes on the inside, and Iggy's going to try, he isn't going to try and go for a switchback, he's going to try and stick to the outside, and he's squeezed right up onto the edge of that final little left hand kink. As we're now on to lap 5, it's Iggy and Lars side by side into the turn 2 chicane. Iggy just slightly ahead there. Once again, straight line speed of the 4GT. Lars decides to let Iggy through and then dive bomb him into turn 2 and is able to gain the lead. But now Iggy has decided to brake early, go for the switchback, and now both drivers are side by side into this 45-degree fast right-hand kink. Iggy gets ahead, he goes for the inside, but now Lars has dive bombed Iggy again. He's gone down into the inside of the corner before the S's. I don't know what number it is, and there's contact between the two drivers. Iggy and Lars, they bump wheels. They're now side by side through the S's. Iggy and Lars, I can't watch. I'm going to have to, unfortunately, go on board with Elite Spectre. And Lars has, I don't know whether he's been pushed off or whether he's kind of gone off by his own mistake there, but he was all over the gravel and the grass through the S's, and it's meant that he's lost all of that hard work. He's all the way down in P9. Kep's overtaking him. Elite Spectre's overtaking him. Most importantly, though, Iggy has overtaken him. He's finally passed Elite Spectre and Lars, and he's finally in P6. There's now a 4-second gap between him and Typos in the AMR in P5. And I don't even want to know what the gap is. 14, almost 15 seconds now between the two championship protagonists. Iggy in P6 and BX Royal chilling right now in P1. 5-second gap between him and Rayo Chan in the Genesis. Oh dear, I'm actually kind of burping and belching a bit here. Ladies and gentlemen, that was an incredible couple of laps as we're now on to lap 6 of the sprint. We're about halfway through, isn't it? A 15-minute sprint, if I remember. We're already 8.5 minutes into this sprint race, so maybe 10 or 11 laps in this sprint, I predict, as Kep tries to go for a move on Lars T into the turn 3 chicane, and they're both side by side. Kep on the outside. He's now got 4 wheels on the curb. He somehow kept stability of his car, and now it is Kep and Lars T in P9. And I'm on board right now with RDO, of course. He wasn't messaging the chat because he's driving in the race. So how did he message me 5 minutes ago? I don't know. RDO in the AMG is probably the best driver to watch a battle between Kep, who's absolutely spun out. I was about to say being taken out, but I don't want to presume what happened between him and Lars T. Both drivers were going side by side through the S's. I was on board with RDO behind, and it looked like Lars may have either pushed or just put pressure on a bit too much on Kepler. He ended up all over the curb, dipped a wheel in the gravel, and absolutely spun out. His back right tyre, his back bumper, they're both flaring up. He's got no rear downforce. He's driving all over the place. And he's all the way down in P12. That's the second crash now for Kepler GT, just in this sprint race alone. Man, it's been a good drive from Kep, but a really unlucky race. We'll see. Hopefully, he gets a bit more luck in the feature race, of course, which is happening straight after this. Now, BX Royal 6 seconds ahead. You see, I'm not sure what the rules are with ALR anymore. Back when I used to race, there used to be a one-shot qualifying between the sprint and the feature race. I heard they may have changed that now to reverse grids in the feature, and if that's the case, that is going to be major for the championship. BX Royal will either be starting in P10 or P15. Like I say, I don't know what the rules are for this championship since I left. I've been very busy, and I haven't been on Discord for a long time. Last year, I was addicted to it. This year, I maybe go on it once every 6 months. University is tough. But enough about me. Just trying to explain why I haven't been here for the last don't know how many months. What we should be focusing on is the driving that's happening right now. Of course, BX Royal in P1. The reason why I haven't been commentating for a little bit is because it seems like not a lot of drama is happening up and down the grid. The two drivers that are closest to each other, Lars T and Elite Spectre, the two Dutchmen, are battling right now for P7. They're going through the chicane of death, and both drivers are pretty square, although it seemed like Lars lost a little bit of time there. He was a bit squirrely, in fact, as Kepler GT has either oversteered or hit another driver. All I know is he's in the barrier around that really tight right-hander before the chicane of death. He's all the way down in P13 now, and there is a substantial gap between him and Howlin' Jimmy in 14, and Mackey's Gherkin, who is a whole minute behind BX Royal. who has just unfortunately oversteered again. He's had a major incident. I'm not too sure whether that was a hit with Kep, perhaps. In fact, there's no chance it was a hit with Kep, because Kep had already spun around at that point. All I know is that half of his car is flaring up the MFD. He's got major damage. And unfortunately, I don't think he's going to get any position other than P15 for Mackey's Gherkin. Of course, literally no... Oh, Mackey's Gherkin, he's lost it again, unfortunately. I don't know whether he's doing that on purpose. I don't want to laugh just in case he isn't. Unfortunate race for Mackey's Gherkin there. He's just oversteered and lost it again through the chicane of death. He's going to be lapped in a minute, actually. In fact, yeah, he is almost about to be lapped by BX Royal, who's now 6.5 seconds in the lead of this race. But this is what we all like in Dragon Trail Seaside. This is what we all sign up for, the chicane of death. How many times have I seen a driver on a daily race, 10 seconds, maybe 15 seconds in the lead of the race, only to die, for lack of a better word, die in the chicane of death? Well, I've seen it many times, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm not saying that BX Royal is going to bin it through the chicane of death, but I wouldn't be surprised if one of the front runners does have an incident today. As we're on board right now, the AMR of Elite Spectre is still trying to overtake the 911 of Lars T, who goes deep into the final turn. Elite Spectre breaks early. He's able to go for the switchback. He's able to get side by side with Lars. In fact, he's a full car's length ahead now, heading into the turn 2-3 chicane. Is Lars going to go for a dive bomb? He's going to brake late, at least on the outside of turn 2. That means he gets the inside of turn 3, but he's now side by side with Elite Spectre. I think RDO's a little bit too far behind in order to follow him. Yellow flag. No, none of the front runner drivers have caused that yellow flag. Lars now going deep down the inside of that little right hand flick before the S's. But Elite Spectre, once again, he brakes early, he gets the better exit, he goes around the outside of Lars, and the two drivers are now side by side through the S's. Last time Lars was side by side with the driver, it was Kepler GT. We all know how that ended. Oh, it doesn't matter. Elite Spectre pulls out of the battle, he succumbs the position, and he's now in P8 with Lars T. Just about 4 tenths ahead as both drivers head into that tight right-hander before the chicane of death. And it doesn't seem like either driver is going to be swapping places for quite a while. Now, I don't know whether that was an incident with Rayo Chan or whether CM has just been in the maps. But what I'm meant to say is that Rayo Chan and CMP, I swear, had a pretty large gap between the two drivers for a while. Well, now there's only a half a second gap in this battle for P3. And no, I'm pretty sure that the yellow flags in Sector 1 are actually a glitch. As we reach the 15-minute mark, it is only 15 minutes for the feature race. Lap 10 is going to be the final lap, and it's also, in fact, lap 9 is going to be the final lap for half of the drivers on the grid there. As the mighty Iggy, well, turns out he's reached the checkered flag, and the best he can unfortunately manage after that incident with Kep on lap 1 is a P5. I mean, that was a strong battle between him and Typos, and apparently it went right down to the line there. 0.04 of a second between the two drivers. I remember when he overtook Lars T, I had no idea he was anywhere near the AMR driver of Typos. Well, the only people who we get to watch now, BR4 in P4. He's not got an interesting race. P4 guaranteed for the Toyota GT driver. That's an interesting choice. I've never seen that before, even in a daily, let alone a league race like ALR. Of course, CMP and Rayo Chan, they were having a bit of a battle. Spaced out a bit now. Second between the two drivers. But please, I'm going to have to give some appreciation right now to BX Royal. Never seen him race before. Well, I can see why he's in a championship battle with Iggy. He's just won the sprint race by all over 7 seconds there. It was 10 whole laps, that sprint race for BX Royal. Rayo Chan crosses the line in P2. CMP P3, BR4 in P4. Iggy in P5. Typos in P6, Lars T. We were on board with Lars for a while. He had a very eventful race. Well, he booked P7 in the end. Elite Spectre, the AMR teammates, In P8, RDO. In P9, RDO's teammate, Simon K. Or Simon K. I like saying Simon K. In P10, the filthy P11, Mushalot P12, Hal and Jimmy J P13. I believe that was Kepler in P14, and if my memory serves me well, Mackey's Gherkin in P15. There we go. Very interesting race suit there for BX Royal, who has of course won the sprint race, and that gives him a whole bunch of points. How many points, you may be asking? It's a very good question. I don't know. It's given him a whole bunch of points, I know that. And is going to be an even tighter battle between the top two drivers. I do apologise that I'm not able to give more detailed information. Like I say, I don't know a lot about this championship. Even when I used to race, I didn't actually know how the points worked. But yeah, they're a very interesting sprint race right there. Lots of drama. Crazy amounts of battles, I must admit. Something that I am actually going to do right now is turn off BGM. There we go. I did realise halfway through that sprint race that background music was on, and I know a lot of drivers don't like, or a lot of viewers don't like hearing it, which is totally understandable. BGM is now turned off. Of course, we are sitting in the lobby right now as RDO, the host, prepares the feature race. If my memory serves me well, it's going to be a 40-minute race. Pit stops mandatory. I mean, if how well everyone's softs held up during that sprint race is anything to go by, it might be a one-stop race. Drivers starting on soft, going on mediums. It will be interesting to see whether there's a one-shot qualifying or whether we just go ahead and do the reverse grids. I'm learning as you are, ladies and gents. In fact, you probably know it better than I do. But yeah, the tyres seem to hold up pretty well, actually, during that sprint race. I remember when the softs were, well, pretty much unusable for most sprint races, apart from Brands Hatch, of course, which has got that ultra short pit stop. It's like 10 seconds to pit. You see, the meta for that race is actually to start on the softs, pit onto another set of softs during the sprint race, which is very interesting. So the fact that every driver is in the garage suggests that we might be doing a one-shot qualifying. As wow, we're actually able to see what tyres everyone is doing. As RDO messages that, yeah, it's a shame that oh, okay, so it is reverse grid. I apologise for stumbling over my words. RDO confirms it's reverse grid, but real quick, I'm going to use the opportunity right now to see what tyres everyone's using. And BX Royal on mediums right now. Pretty much every driver on mediums, in fact, apart from last team, Mushalot and Mackey's Gherkin. Howler and Jimmy J also on the softs. But Iggy and BX Royal starting on the same tyre, the mediums. 40-minute feature race, this. My estimation, maybe about 30 laps or so. 15 minutes, 10 laps. 40 minutes will be 30 laps. So we'll see. It seemed like those softs did hold on quite strong. On the final couple of laps, they were maybe shredded and blistered just a bit more than what your average driver would like. But I thought they held pretty strong for those 10 laps, so I reckon it's going to be 20 laps on the mediums, 10 laps on the softs. But we'll see. Championships aren't won with a one-stop strategy. I tell you what I want to see. I want to see someone like the mighty Iggy pop a two-stop, pit for a set of softs and chase down BX Royal for that victory. As we are of course waiting for the reverse grids to be set. As BR4 messages, did you catch my crash in turn 3? Unfortunately not, BR4. If that was the lap 1 incident, then I might have caught it. I thought the Kepler GT was the culprit. of hitting into the mighty Iggy. Of course, it might be another lap that BR4's talking about, or there could have been multiple incidents around that turn 2 and 3 chicane on lap 1. That would have been insane. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to catch it all because I was on board with the driver in P3, watching, well, Iggy's race kind of devolve a little bit. Unfortunately, I hate to be so cruel, but it kind of faded before his eyes for a moment. He was able to recover quite well to a really respectable P5. Of course, he he picked types, didn't he, right on the line, only about half a tenth between the two drivers. Oh dear, I apologise for that. I was watching a video that was on Discord. Wow, that was interesting. Watching, yeah, it's just a stream, I know. Watching that stream, it has made me realise that actually I think it's that maybe my pop filter is a bit weird on my microphone or something, but every time that I talk loudly, the mic goes all crackled. Unfortunately, I apologise for that. I'm going to keep it further away this time. You don't want to hear that when you're watching an ALR stream, so I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen again. I will check to see if keeping the microphone further away improves the audio quality. I might have to turn up the volume of my mic just slightly. Right, hopefully this... Right. I apologise if you were able to hear me twice then for a second. I was just testing the microphone. For some reason it's not crackly on my PlayStation, so that could be a problem with my lag. I don't know, let's be honest, it's a problem with me and my commentating style. I don't know what we're waiting for. I think it is that RDO is in some sort of settings menu somewhere, configuring the reverse grid. Yes, of course, what I was going to say before, RDO was in the chat talking about how it's such a shame that BX Royal, I apologise, it's such a shame that BX Royal missed that race on round 2. Apparently, BX Royal would actually be in the lead of the championship now by 2 points if it was just a 7-race championship and round 2 never happened. But unfortunately, round 2 did happen, unfortunately for BX Royal at least, and it's meant that the championship is going round down to the wire. His internet died that day. That is unfortunate. I remember my first race at university. It was my second day actually at university. Round 6 of season 6, sorry. I was racing against Iggy and my internet just kept on crashing. My university Wi-Fi is not good. I knew at that point there's no point in having my PlayStation at uni. Took it home and haven't raced since. Anyway, here we are for the feature race. Iggy needs P13 to confirm the victory, RDO says on the chat, possibly, as Mackey's Gherkin starts the race in pole position. So it is a full 20 grid reverse grid, or 16 grid reverse grid, heading down into turn 1. It'll be interesting to see if anyone's going to go for a move. It looks like Kepler GT is going to be the driver who tries to make the move. As we go on to the third person chase cam right now, Kep does go down the inside of Mackey's Gherkin. Bit of contact between the two drivers there. Actually, there is quite a bottleneck in the top 5 drivers as Simon K gets a pretty good exit in the AMR, and it's a big crash right there for Howling Jimmy J, who had an awful sprint race. He's unfortunately hit the barrier at the exit of turn 3 and he's all the way down into P15. That is not what you want to see. I tell you what you do want to see. Multiple drivers going side by side right now through the S's. They're all kind of convergent. I tell you who isn't. BR4 still going side by side with the mighty Iggy right there. I tell you what, although the 4GT may be good in a straight line, it does struggle around the corners. Iggy right there on the mediums, he's still side by side with BR4. BR4 pushing him right over the curb. He almost had 2 wheels in the gravel right there. He loses a position to CMP23. Are any drivers going to go for a move into turn 1, into turn whatever? Lars T does. I apologise, it's the right-hander before the chicane of death. Lars T decides to go for a move on RDO, but unfortunately loses a bit of traction as Typos Games unfortunately has to give up P10 to, or P9 unfortunately, actually. Right, no, I need to concentrate on what I'm saying. He gives up P9 to BR4, BR4 in P9, Typos spins through the chicane of death, Iggy now up into P10, Lars and BR4 side by side through the final corner. And unfortunately, BR4 isn't able to get a good enough exit. He stays in P9. CMP tried to overtake Typos around the final corner. He isn't able to. Typos still in P11. Iggy still in P9. Quite a gap between the top few drivers there. So we're actually going to be following Kep and Elite Spectre side by side into turn 2. Kep goes deep. He breaks late. He goes on the inside. And he takes the position. He's now in P3. Quite firmly in P3 as well, actually, unless Elite Spectre tries to go for a move into the double apex right-hander. He doesn't. Instead, Simon K tries to. He overtakes his... well, he doesn't overtake anyone, actually. He's right on the back of Elite Spectre, who's actually now side-by-side with Kepler OGT through the S's. As Simon K almost goes on the grass right there, spectating the 2 drivers. And in fact, the Filthy gets a really good exit there from the first corner in the S's and almost overtakes Simon K. I mean, these 4 drivers are really neck and neck right now, heading into the downhill. Tight right-hander before the chicane of death. Oh yes, actually, Simon K is going to go for the dive bomb into that tight right-hander and is actually going to get a pretty clean and square overtake on Elite Spectre. Elite Spectre, though, gets a much better exit. He's in a much lighter car, the Aston Martin. He almost looked like he was going to go side by side through the chicane of death there, but he doesn't. And in fact, both Simon K and Elite Spectre get an awful exit from the chicane of death, but it's Elite Spectre who gets the worst exit of them all. He spins on the final corner, damages his car. He's super slow right now. He loses the P4 to Simon K. He loses P5 to De Filthy. Now he's got Lars all the way back on him, threatening P6. In fact, we've got the Nissan GTR of BX Royal, our championship protagonist, who is also trying to make a move on Elite Spectre, who's still got... Well, he's actually repaired his car now, but he had severe front axle damage. BX Royal is the driver who comes out on top there. He's in P6. Lars overtakes Elite Spectre and gets P7. Elite Spectre now all the way down into P8. And Iggy, unfortunately, still in P14. I'm not too sure whether there was an incident that I wasn't able to catch. I mean, there's so much carnage happening up and down the grid here, ladies and gentlemen, that I'm not able to, unfortunately, cover it all as CMP and Typos Games go side by side through the double apex right-hander into the S's. Typos Games 44 gains P11. And, well, the biggest battle right now is probably Lars T and BX Royal. They were side by side for a moment there through the S's. But Lars T, unfortunately, isn't able to get enough traction through the S's. BX Royal overtakes him. Lars T decides to go for an ultra-late inside brake, but he completely overshoots that downhill sharp right-hander. Loses a bunch of time to BX Royal. And unfortunately loses P6 as well through the chicane of death. It's now BX Royal P6. The Filthy in the AMR in P5. Very squirrely through the exit there of the chicane of death. The AMR obviously doesn't like the chicane of death here, ladies and gentlemen. BX Royal gets an insane exit through the chicane of death. He's now down the inside of Simon K into the final turn. BX Royal gets crazy understeer on the exit though. He had 4 wheels on the curb, 2 wheels on the grass there for a second, and it's meant Simon K is able to get a better exit for the final turn. He's able to get the slipstream. He bump drafts BX Royal once down the straights, and it looks like BX Royal is making that car super wide into turn 2. Simon K not able to get the move off. BR4 still in P4. Maybe that bump draft was not the best idea, as it seems like there was a bit of contact there between De Filthy and Simon K. I just saw Simon K spin like crazy on the exit of turn 3. Now through the double apex right-hander before the S's. The only battle that's happening, CMP versus Elite Spectre for P9. Elite Spectre in P9, CMPT P10. As the mighty Iggy gains a few positions, he's now up into P11, but look at that, he's getting crazy. Well, I think it looks like he's getting crazy understeer through the S's. The 4GT kind of held its own. It's obviously not been out for good grip. Held its own on the softs through the S's, but now on the mediums it seems like Iggy is actually struggling quite a bit with understeer through Sector 2. As Elite Spectre and CMP swap positions once again. CMP in the GTR now up into P9. And BR4 is actually right on the rear bumper of DeFilthy through the chicane of death. DeFilthy gets once again a bit of a squirrely exit in the AMR. I think it is the lightweight nature of the AMR means it is a nightmare through the chicane of death. BR4 is going to go down the inside of DeFilthy into the final turn. He's going to brake late, but he isn't going to overshoot the turn. He glues himself to the inside curb, and he's already a whole car's length ahead of DeFilthy before the end of the turn. But it means DeFilthy in the superior top speed of the AMR DB9 is going to try and slipstream BR4 into turn 2, as there's another battle happening between Simon K and BX Royal. No overtakes there, and no overtakes for P6 either. DeFilthy plays the smart game, I guess you could say, and decides to secede the position. I said succumb the position before, secede the position is the word, but unfortunately I think that his secession might have been a little bit too conservative, as Rayo Chan is now right on the back of DeFilthy. It seems like DeFilthy has lost a bit of time there, actually, being behind BR4. Rayo Chan has gone for a very ballsy move. Let's see if he can pull it off. Outside of the S's, he then gets the inside of the second turn of the S's, and he does overtake DeFilthy. He's a whole car's length ahead. Why was that ballsy? Well, because Rayo Chan had two wheels on the grass at one point heading into the first turn of the S's. Don't know how he was able to pull that off, but it was an excellent overtake there. As, oh, there's quite a bit of oversteer there, a bit of turbo lag oversteer for CMP in the GTR 35. Gets crazy oversteer out of the downhill right-hander before the chicane of death. All it means is that DeFilthy gets P8. And this midfield, they're swapping positions every corner, as BR4 is now right on the back of Simon K. Once again, they're going to swap positions around the final corner. And, yeah, there we go. Simon K now on the back of BR4. Man, BR4 has really had to battle for that P5. I believe he was actually battling with Elite Spectre. Or he was battling with somebody. He was battling with DeFilthy. That was it for P6 a minute ago. Now he's battling with Simon K for P5. And Simon K playing the conservative game. Decides not to go for a move. I mean, I tell you who you can guarantee will make a move. Lars T. Absolute dive bomb king so far. Unfortunately, he's all the way down in P14, so I guess one of his dive bombs was a bit too ballsy, I guess you could say. May have had an incident, as Iggy really is struggling to get past this midfield. Sitting now in P11, and he's right behind Elite Spectre. And it seems like Elite Spectre's got significantly more tyre wear than the mighty Iggy. But once again, Iggy seems to be struggling just a bit, maybe with oversteer. Sorry, with understeer through the S's, but he is able to glue himself right onto the back right there. Probably Spectre. Quickly going to swap to the bonnet cam, just a bit of mix. Mighty Iggy, he's going to go for the outside. Final minute move to go for the outside of Elite Spectre into the downhill right hand before the chicane of death. Elite Spectre still in P10. Iggy wasn't able to make the overtake. That is unfortunate. Maybe he just ceded the position. Didn't want to go side by side with Elite Spectre through the chicane of death. Elite Spectre loses a lot of time through the chicane of death there, but Iggy gets a huge amount of momentum through the exit chicane of death. It means that he puts all four wheels on the curb, and that only means one thing for the 4GT. He got crazy oversteer, almost lost the car. And yeah, he's now in P11. Well, still P11. I just remembered that Iggy needs at least P13 in order to win the championship. Seems kind of likely, I'm not going to lie, the BX Royal is going to win this race. He's in P4 at the moment. 6.5 seconds between him and Mooshlot in the 911. BX Royal, of course, in the R35. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. But I'm pretty sure that BX Royal is going to have no problem at all overtaking the top three drivers, including Kepler GT, who, of course, unfortunately, I'm going to have to remind him, he had a really difficult sprint race, so I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that he can hold on to the bottom step of that podium, but when you've got BX Royal behind you. I'm not sure if that's going to be very likely. CMP right in P8, about 0.3 of a second behind Sun1K. It seems like Sun1K maybe had an incident or something. Last time he was in P6, right on the back of BR4. There's now about a 2.5 second gap between the two drivers. He's now battling for P7 against the teammates, of course, of BX Royal. Also in the R35, I would presume. CMP 23 as Sun1K gets an awful exit from the chicane of death there, surprising from the AMG, which normally has incredible grip, extremely heavy car, as in not very good grip but incredible stability. It is such a heavy car. Of course I raced that in season 3 of ALR, I'm not sure. It was one season, it was a good car, served me well. Sun1K, maybe it's not serving Sun1K too well. It has got very good straight line speed. Interestingly, Sun1K decides to cede the overtaken opportunity, and obviously he's quite content in P6 as he gets a crazy amount of oversteer actually outside turn 3 as Kepler GT has another incident. He's been spun around. I don't know who spun him around or whether it was on his own accord. In fact, unfortunately, he's actually rage quit from the lobby. He's rage quit from the lobby, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm not surprised. Fingers crossed were for Kepler GT to maintain the bottom step of the podium. But unfortunately, he's not able to. BX Royal now in P2. Of course, everyone's moved up. It means BR4's now in P3. As Kepler GT, I'm not too sure whether that was an incident with BX Royal at all. And once again, this is becoming a bit of a trend with me. I wasn't able to catch it on the stream. But something happened. Kepler GT has unfortunately been spun out, and he's out of the race. Not the way that Kepler would want to have finished the final race of the season. The only race I commentated in Season 7 was round Monza. I'm pretty sure Kepler GT actually won that race. As we're on lap 8 right now, pretty chill. I think things have calmed down quite significantly. We're about 13.5 minutes through the race. I predict around 30 laps in total for this 40-minute endurance. And it's looking pretty good right now, pretty fly for BX Royal, who is all over the curve right now, all four wheels on the exit of turn 3. He's pretty safe and sound right now in P2. He's only got Mouchalot to deal with in P1. And Mouchalot's going to be pitting in a minute. He's actually on softs. But to be fair, they are holding up exceptionally well, at least on the graph. I'm not too sure whether he's experiencing a lot of steer. It seems like he's actually, looks like he's driving on ice a bit as we spectate him through the S's. I suspect we're going to see pit stops maybe around lap 12, meaning we're going to see pit stops around lap 18, I would predict, for the medium runners. That's of course if they're going for the one stop, which, to be fair, after witnessing how well the softs are holding out for Mouchalot, I think the one stop is going to be the smartest option for the vast majority of the drivers. As we're on board right now with Rayo-chan in the Genesis X. Of course, I keep on commenting, I'm going to say it again. Very nice to see a Genesis X be used in a league race. One of the rarest cars to actually see in the wild in daily races. And believe your eyes, ladies and gentlemen, he's racing against a Toyota Supra VGT, another one of the rarest cars in Gran Turismo, it seems. BR4 in the Supra gets a bit of oversteer. It means that the incredible straight line speed of the Genesis X is carrying Rayo-chan to be within half a second of BR4 into turn 2, but of course way too far unless you're last T. Nobody's going to go for a move from that distance. And unfortunately, whilst I've been following the top 7 drivers who have been doing pretty much nothing, or at least the top 5 drivers, I think I've been missing a battle between Iggy and De Filthy. As Iggy now gains P6 in the 40 team. De Filthy down into P7. I have no idea how Iggy is actually making these medium tyres perform so well. Again, I'm basing this entirely off the graphs, but it seems like it's got pretty good grip. Bit of a train from Iggy in P6 all the way up to, well, I think that extends to Howlin' Jimmy in P10. As we follow that train from P6 through the chicane of death, going for a bit of a cinematic spectator cam right now. I think I should have been using this for longer actually, some of these camera shots are incredible. And I think the two drivers that we need to watch the most, Simonke on the back of Elite Spectre, they were only 3/10 apart, but Simonke gets a crazy amount of oversteer once again through the chicane of death. It's got quite a lot of wear on the left tyres. Surprising amount of wear actually. AMG, decent tyre wear, but like I say, I'm surprised that he's all over the place actually. Super heavy car. You would expect a bit more stability than that, especially through the chicane. Just noticed Iggy is actually rocking the quite a bit of a Red Bull livery there on the 4GT. Look like just the original kind of default skin from this. You know that there isn't a lot of drama happening on track when the commentator was talking about driver liveries. We're on lap 11 right now. And I tell you what is interesting, I've just noticed Moushalot, sorry, right now in the lead of the race, still about 5.5 seconds ahead of BX Royal. I think a few laps ago was maybe 6 seconds ahead. So pretty good pace right here from Moushalot. But look at that rear left tyre, it is literally about to puncture any minute now. I'm sure Moushalot will be heading into the pits. In fact, it looks like there's a bit of a puncture already forming. He was pretty slow through the final turn. Probably because he was pilling into the pits, to be honest. But yeah, he pills into the pits, of course. Probably is going to bang on the same mediums. And it means BX Royal is now comfortably in the lead of the race. Rayo Chan is the only other driver, well, driver behind them on mediums. Humongous 5-second gap between the two drivers. I swear I turned off race background music. But I guess we're just going to have it. I've only just noticed that it's I think the battle to watch is going to be this battle right here for P6. You see, Iggy's pulled out quite a substantial gap over De Filthy. He's now chilling about 2 seconds ahead in P5. He's still got a 3-second gap to PR4. But De Filthy right now, he's got a bit of a train behind him. As I cycle through the cameras like a madman. In fact, Elite Spectre is right on the back of De Filthy through the final corner. He went a little bit deep there, got a bit of a compromised exit, and it's meant that they're pretty much even until, of course, Elite Spectre picks up that slipstream into turn 2, and I'm sure, since they are teammates, De Filthy isn't going to give Elite Spectre that much of a problem into turn 2, kind of secedes the position a little bit. Elite Spectre now in P6, and De Filthy P7. The MR simply just swapping positions. Although Elite Spectre has got significantly more tyre wear than De Filthy. And significantly less fuel as well, so I I guess Elite Spectre's going for the aggressive play. I do apologise as well, I've just noticed. They're not teammates. They may both be in the Aston Martin, but one's in the DBR9 and one's in the Vantage. Elite Spectre in the Vantage to Filthy in the DBR9. I don't know whether that was they are actually teammates or whether they're obviously not and they've both just gone for an Aston Martin. Regardless, I guess De Filthy is going to want to put on a bit more of a battle than I first suspected, although to be fair it seems like he's playing quite a conservative race. He's used barely any fuel, he's used barely any of his tyres. In fact, the driver with the least amount of fuel has been absolutely gunning it all race. I was about to comment about how many drivers he's overtaken. The Genesis X of Rayo-chan, first driver on the mediums to pit. Tyres, relatively decent, but fuel, he's absolutely burned through that tank. So that means the only battle now, really, I mean, look at that, BX Royal with a 7.5 second gap. The only battle going on right now is De Filthy and Elite Spectre. I'm sure De Filthy will appreciate the free slipstream being offered by Elite Spectre there in the Vantage. BX Royal leading the race now by, let's just say, 8 seconds. Unfortunately, it's a bit heartbreaking for BX Royal because even though he's in the lead of the race, there's nothing he can do right now. As the mighty Iggy's in P4, it means Iggy is going to take home the championship, which is going to be what, maybe his 4th consecutive championship. I'm just guessing that he won season 7. Pretty sure he won season 6, and he definitely won season 5. But yeah, there we go, the mighty Iggy in P4. Yeah, it does seem like Iggy is of course going to win the championship, of course. It could be, though, that he has an incident through the chicane of death somehow, or something, crashes. Then the championship battle will be on once again. But as it stands, BX Royal, he's had an incredible race around DT Seaside tonight, but it's just not going to be enough. Of course, this was all because BX Royal lagged out of the second race of the season. Was not able to score a single point, and that meant that Iggy took a huge lead of the championship early on. Although, of course, BX Royal was actually leading the championship after round 1. A lot of drivers, of course, just peeling off into the pits. Iggy with the highest amount of fuel out of all of them. Okay, RDO stating that Iggy will actually be the first driver in ALR's history to successfully defend a title. Now that is a very good stat to have as a league. It's meant that, you know, Drivers' Championship titles are swapping hands every championship. Turns out Iggy didn't win season 6. He won last season, season 7, he won season 5. Turns out season 6, I remember now, it was actually won by BR4. Watch, how much you want to bet it wasn't won by BR4? I just remember season 5 as the season that I was destined to win in the Ford, in the Jag F type, sorry. Fortunately, the internet said otherwise. Hopefully, though, I will be racing in season 9. I am hoping to race for season 9. I'm definitely going to be racing for the Nations Cup, happening over the Easter break. As we're on board right now with De Filthy, once again, as he's still battling with Elite Spectre, and in fact, both drivers peel off into the pit lane, even though Elite Spectre's got significantly less tyre tread and significantly less fuel than Elite Spectre. Although there was quite a significant margin between the two drivers at one point. I think De Filthy has kind of burnt through his fuel the last couple of laps. Perhaps battling Elite Spectre for a bit. It's an interesting choice there for Elite Spectre to go for the... yeah, it's Elite Spectre who's gone for the wait, hang on. It is... Wait, hang on. Oh, whoa, there's actually a side-by-side battle. And I haven't been following it the entire time. Quite a significant battle for P5 between Lars T, BR4 and the mighty Iggy. It turns out that Lars was side-by-side with BR4 through the turn 3 chicane. Ended up being either pushed onto the grass or drove onto the grass himself. I think he had all 4 wheels on the curb at one point. And he's now lost both positions, P5 and... Well, for a moment he had. Looked like he was going to have P5, battling with BR4. But I remember the Iggy was in P5 for quite a while. And I see why. Lars T has decided to, well, he's on a different setup, isn't he? He's put barely any fuel in his car compared to Iggy and BR4, and it's meant that he's jumped both of them in the pit lane. In fact, it seems like BR4 has also jumped Iggy in the pit lane. Iggy has got an insane amount of fuel in his car. Oh dear, and Iggy has actually, I was about to say, it looked like Iggy almost had an incident. He has had an incident on the exit of the chicane of death. He clips the left tyre and he's got damage to the rear bumper and damage to the rear left tyre. That is not going to be good. He's going to get crazy oversteer. We see it already. He had a snap of oversteer through the final turn as Lars T gains P6. And that's also going to affect his downforce. It seems like although the 4GT, and I'll say it again, very good for its straight line speed, would demolish a 911 down the straights, especially in slipstream. Damage is meaning that they're going to be side by side into turn 2, and Lars has gone deep down the inside and has unfortunately had to secede the position there. The mighty Iggy broke early, he went for the switch back, he got the apex of turn 2 and went round the outside of turn 3. Easy overtake there for Iggy in P6. Now I'm not too sure whether BR4 was ahead of Iggy before the pit stop or not, but they were side by side for a moment. Bit of a substantial gap between the two drivers now, 1.8 seconds. It'll be interesting to see if Iggy can regain P5. In fact, yeah, Iggy was in P4 at one point, but that could be because of some of the drivers who begun the race on the soft tyre, of course. That is why it appeared like Lars T came out of nowhere. He's on the mediums now, he started on the softs. He's also not got enough fuel to finish this race. I mean, just having a quick glance at his fuel gauge, 25% left. And I think we've got about 33% of the race to go. Yeah, not at all, no chance. Is Lars T going to make it till the end? He's going to go for the 2-stop. And there was some sort of incident with Lars because he's all the way down in P11. He was in P7 the last time I checked up on him. Just battling with Mighty Iggy, of course. He went deep into turn 2. I don't know whether he went on the grass or whether a separate incident has led him to lose so many positions. But yeah, looking up and down the grid, not much going on apart from Mouchelot, another one of those soft starters, now on the medium tyres, now on the back of CMP23, who's battling for P2 for a while. I thought Rayo Chan was on course for at least a podium, but it turns out actually he's been in provisional P4 this entire time, of course. I should not have discounted the drivers on the ultimate strategy. But up and down the grid, apart from a little battle between Mouchelot and CMP, which has kind of ended now, 1 second gap between both drivers. Nothing was really happening apart from a bit of a battle between Defilty and Elite Spectre. Once again, the two Aston Martin drivers. They've been battling for what is now P8, now that the medium runners have pit. He's been battling for this position for pretty much the entirety of the race. Half a second gap. In fact, a second gap between the 3 drivers battling for P8, 9 and 10. We've had quite a few rage quits this race. There were 15 cars. I know that Kepler GT left. I'm not too sure what's happened to the rest of them. RDO, well, Lars T now is unfortunately last. Look, 23-second gap between him and RDO. Of course, Lars has had to pit onto a fresh set of softs. He's gone for the 2-stop. And it's just because he just simply didn't put enough fuel in his car. It seemed like he really underfueled his car. Probably because he wanted a battle with with BR4 and the mighty Iggy. Well, that was a short-lived battle. He only battled for about half a lap until he lost a load of positions. Finally, the AMR battle between Simon K and the Filthy has been split. Sorry, the AMR battle between Elite Spectre and the Filthy has been split, with Simon K in the AMG. Splitting the two AMRs, back in his car in P9, but not for long, as the Filthy is going to get a great run, only 0.2 of a second behind Simon K through the S's. Nothing's going to happen, unfortunately. The Filthy gets bad, dirty air through the S's, and now we're looking at about now we're looking at about a 4/10 gap between the two drivers. Yeah, not much, unfortunately, happening up and down the road. We're almost at lap 20. In fact, just as BX Royal crosses the line right now, the beginning of lap 20. BX Royal with the fastest lap at the moment at 1:36.5. The mighty Iggy, his best lap is at 1:37.8. It will be interesting to see what this lap is, now that he's had clean air for some time and he's on the softs. Wow, that was only a 1:38 flat. So, wow, BX Royal really popping off right now. He's setting consistent 1:37s. A lot of people talking about how strong the AMG, sorry, not the AMG, the R35 Nismo 2018 is. I've seen a couple messages in the chat, on the Discord chat, talking about how the GTR is so good. Yeah, it's an interesting point of discussion actually, because I personally, this is a controversial opinion, I personally haven't felt the R35 to be very strong. I hate turbocharged cars. Teeps, unfortunately left as well. I don't even know he was racing. Yeah, I think that was a spectator. Just left the lobby. As I was saying about the R35, of course, not a lot of drama happening up and down the grid. Unfortunately, we might as well stay on board with Lucia. At least he's in the slipstream right now, Rayo-chan. In fact, I believe it's actually that Rayo-chan has just overtaken Lucia. I remember saying that he was on course for a podium. He's now on the podium in the Genesis X. But as I was going to say, sorry, the let's go on board with nice Iggy. The R35 Nismo has recently been regarded as an incredibly strong car in Group 3. I don't deny that it is probably a strong car. I don't deny that BX Royal is also pushing it incredibly far to gain a 10-second lead on CMP. Absolute dominant performance. You know, it'll be interesting to see actually whether BX Royal would have such a significant lead over Iggy if they were side by side and Iggy wasn't caught up in an incident on lap 1 of the sprint race. And he was also caught up of an incident at the beginning of the feature race as well, of course, because he would have begun the race ahead of BX Royal. So there was an incident at the start of the race which pushed Iggy all the way down to P11, I believe, on about lap 3. So don't get me wrong, BX Royal is really pushing the car hard. I do think that there would be a big gap between Royal and Iggy. If you just look at the lap times alone, Royal's popping consistent 37.0s. He's just about to cross the line and start lap 22 out of 30 right now. And yeah, he once again sets a pretty good 1:37.3. Iggy is stuck in the 1:38s. But yeah, do I think the GTR R35 is a good car? I personally don't like it. I don't like turbocharged cars. I hate the turbo lag. Ironically, the GT race car, the full GT that Iggy's in, is turbocharged. It doesn't really feel that way. I think it's supercharged actually. It doesn't feel that way. It doesn't have a crazy amount of turbo lag. I found with all of the Nissans in Group 3, there is so much turbo lag and this massive turbo kick when you come out of some tight corners. It's literally impossible to control. Yeah, it's hard to describe. I just absolutely love the raw power and acceleration and top speed of the Mustang, and I love the lightweight nimbleness of the Jag F-Type. And a long time ago I was going to make a comment on the two Aston Martins. I can finally finish my sentence and say that I really like the Aston Martin DBR9 as well. I didn't realise how strong of a car it was, as the two AMRs are actually battling. Ooh, the S is right now as the Filthy gets all four. In fact, he gets two wheels on the curb, two wheels on the red concrete. Right behind Elite Spectre now, heading through the chicane of death. In fact, right behind Elite Spectre. I think the Filthy went a bit too deep into that sharp right-hander. They were about 2 inches away from each other at one point. And in fact, Elite Spectre gets a pretty bad exit from the chicane of death, and it means the Filthy is able to just blast past him. But yeah, this is the DBR. Elite Spectre in the DBR. And what I was going to say is it's interesting that the Filthy has decided to go for the V12 Vantage, because I'm a big fan as Elite Spectre gets an incredible slipstream into turn 2. Unfortunately, he isn't able to make the move on the Filthy. Well, actually, the Filthy gets a bit of a squirrely exit out of turn 3 there. Originally into turn 2, the Filthy was on the inside, and it was enough for him to maintain P8. Now, both drivers are neck and neck, heading through the double right-hander apex and now into the S section. Anyway, I'm going to say it, one of my favourite cars in Group 3 is actually the Aston Martin DBR9. It's got insane grip, it's an incredible grip car to, you know, rival that of, I'm going to say it, the VW Beetle. Well, maybe when the game first came out, the VW Beetle. And it's actually got a surprisingly good amount of top speed. A lot of people, when they, you know, mock the Aston Martin's top speed, I think without realising they're talking about the V12 Vantage, which has got a pretty shoddy top speed, pretty bad acceleration as well. In fact, Elite Spectre should be all over the Filthy on the straights, and he should also be putting up a pretty good fight in the corners as well. Aston Martin DBR9, my favourite grip car now in Group 3. Favourite straight line speed car, probably the Ford Mustang, and pretty much my favourite car for any track is the Jag F-Type. Interesting to hear that the BMW M6, I would imagine both models, the Sprint and the Kazunori Yamauchi Endurance model, have both been banned this season, which is interesting because I never thought of it as a very good car. I know that it's been a lot better now that they've updated the physics, they've made rear-wheel drive cars easier to handle. I think I'm talking about, you know, the launch day BMW M6, but I've always put it in the same category as like the 458 Italia, being a car that's, you know, incredible oversteer, incredible understeer. Of course, I'm only talking about the different specs of everybody's cars because there is pretty much no drama happening on track right now at all. Apart from RDO did put a message in the chat talking about Simonke, who is now right behind him in P11. I don't know where RDO was before, but the two AMG teammates, well, they don't seem to be getting on too well because they had a bit of an incident earlier on, I suspect, and it's meant that Simonke is now right on the back of RDO. I do apologise, I keep on talking about there being 30 laps in this race. There's only 24. Already we've hit the 40-minute mark as BX Royal crosses the line and wins the race with the fastest lap. Once again, winning 2 races this weekend, but unfortunately isn't able to win the championship. It's not enough. CMP crosses the line in P2, Rayo Chan in P3, Bouchalot in P4, BR4 in P5, but we've got to be on board with the mighty Iggy, who crosses the line in P6. He doesn't win either race this weekend. He's had an awful evening around Dragon Trail Gardens, but it doesn't matter, because all he had to do was finish P13 in order to get the championship victory. And there we go, I believe Mighty Iggy is the first driver in ALR's history to defend a title, as he is the Season 8 World Champion. The Filthy in P8 does eventually end up beating Elite Spectre. The V12 Vantage does beat the DBR9 in the end. RDO in P10 does end up just pipping his teammate Simon K right at the end. I have no idea what happened between the two OMG drivers, but I'm definitely looking forward to finding out in the Discord chat. And unfortunately, the final driver to cross the line for the feature race was Lars T. I mean, he was definitely my driver of the day, I think. He was so entertaining to spectate during that sprint. Like I say, I think he was a little bit too dangerous maybe during the feature race. It meant that he dropped all the way down to P14. Or P12, sorry. And then the rest of the drivers, fortunately, rage quit and DNF'd. 3 drivers rage quit this race. Alas, I believe that is the end, ladies and gentlemen, of the feature race, of the final race, of Season 8, Round 8, of Season 8, of Aero League Racing. There we go. It's my first commentary for ALR in a very long time. Hopefully, you're going to see me on the track during this Nations Cup in a few weeks' time, and hopefully you'll see me on the track in Season 9 as well. Congratulations to Iggy, of course, that cannot be overstated. First driver in ALR history to defend a title. Incredibly fast driver. I haven't ever raced against BX Royal. I'm looking forward to doing that next season. And there we go. Season 8 of ALR Championship has officially concluded. And that was an incredible race. Incredible sprint. Lots of drama. Tough weekend for the mighty Iggy. But he still won the championship. Thank you everybody for watching another stream. And I think the next ALR event is going to be Nations Cup starting in a couple of weeks. Very exciting. But until then, I guess goodbye.